Okay, so let's learn about the anatomy of our subnets. So we've already been doing some subnet examples. 192.168.0.0. We're going to do a simplified problem. The 255 is locking the first three octets, so we're playing with the third octet. We take this subnet mask, break it into binary, and we look at the last one, or the first one, depending on which way we're coming. That's in the 64 position, so that means our chart, our network ID page, and our broadcast chart will read 192.168.0.0. We always start with 0 because we're human, and we're going to increment by our grouping size, which is 64. 28. 192.168.0.256. But remember, we can't use 256. It is too big. I'm going to omit the 192.168.0. They are still there. But to make this a little cleaner, we're going to do without them. So our broadcast is going to be 63 for the first network. For the second network, 127. For the third network, 191. For the last network, 255. Our range is, again, we look at this, the fourth octet. On this side, we add 1. On this side, we're going to minus 1. So it's going to be 1 through 62. Remember, we add 1 for the 1, we subtract 1 or 1 less in our broadcast. That way we can accommodate all of the numbers. One 93 through 254. When we work in our third octet, we were starting off with these numbers being 1. But because we're working our fourth octet now, we're just adding 1 to whatever number is in the fourth octet. And this is our range. But what does this tell us, though? That tells us that this group of addresses can communicate with one another. They cannot communicate with any other network because this is a separate, isolated group. We have to have a router. We have to have something that would allow for networks to communicate with one another. That's the purpose of a router. The next thing, our grouping was 64. That's 64 addresses. Why can we only use 62 for our usable? That's because one address is special for our network ID. One address is special for our broadcast. So 62 usable, plus 1 for our network, plus 1 for our broadcast, that gives us our 64 addresses. This is true whether it be 128, 32, 16, 8, it doesn't matter. This is going to be the same regardless. You always set 2 aside, 1 for the ID, 1 for the broadcast. So the next question is, for our subnet masks, well, can they be any old thing? Can they be 254.255.6? No. Our subnet masks cannot. what it has to be is it has to be a solid set of ones from the left to the right. It will be solid all the way through. Or depending on how you want to look at it, from our right to our left, let's say we have a network that needs 30 hosts, 30 usable addresses. The first is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 fills that gap in. That means all the addresses, all the spots to the left of this guy are going to be ones, because this is the one that supports 32, and we need 30 addresses. So 64, 128, and it goes all the way down. So that subnet would actually be 255, 255, 255 dot 128 plus 64 is 192 plus 32. But once we have that one, that's going to be our grouping size. Everything to the left of that will be ones for our subnet. Okay. With this, it just comes with more and more practice, so keep practicing. Normally what I say is pick an IP address and keep changing the subnet and just practice. Thank you.